Well, Tasha and Russell, they both love reading books. Tasha and Russell, they both love reading books. Well, what do you do when you share such love? Well, you
Welcome to the
start a
105th
club, you
episode of
start a
the
club, an
ABC
adult
Pod, the
book club,
Adult
an
Book
adult
Club with
book
Tasha and Russell.
club,
I am
and a
Russell. She is Tasha.
podcast.
Hey, hey.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast where we drink and we read things. On this episode, we read Everybody Knows by Jordan Harper. But before we get to that, it has been 2 weeks, Tasha. What's been going on in your world?
Well, there was the No King's Day protest last weekend,
Last
I think.
weekend, yeah.
Last weekend. And that was really satisfying to participate in. We made some new signs. We now have such a library of signs. We've run out of poster board though, so we're gonna need to go get more. Um, yeah, we were pretty proud of some of our new ones. My favorite acetaminophen is Tylenol rapid release the Epstein files, which is very apt for this book, I will say. Um, and it was nice to see our tiny little town, which is quite rural and not super liberal, really turn out. There's always a protest on Saturdays, and there's usually only like 10 to 20 people there, and I think we had maybe like 75 to 100.
Nice.
So that was really cool. And there were lots of people in blow up costumes. And I am kicking myself because I have blow up costumes and I didn't know that people were gonna run with the whole Portland thing and do that at all of these. So I kind of wish I'd been aware of that and I would have worn that. My mom did just text me. She got herself a frog one and me a T-Rex, although I think I have
Yeah.
a replacement T-Rex, so now I have two, maybe. Um, and also last weekend, is that right? Yeah, we did our anniversary dinner,
Ooh,
which was a weekend late, but that's okay. It was really good. We had a good meal and we got ourselves some Christmas time plans that we made sort of spur of the moment while we were at that dinner. We're going to New York City to see Hamilton the
wow.
day after Christmas, and I'm very excited.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it's going to be pricey, but worth it. And, that's our present to each other for Christmas.
Nice.
I got my hairs cut and it's finally raining. I mean, it's been raining all week, but we really needed it. And now we have this soaking rain that's more fall feeling. Like I want to be inside with the pellet stove on and cozy blanket and everything. So,
Yeah, we've already had to run our stove a couple times because our house really relies on the sun to heat it at this point in the year. And
yeah.
yeah, these rainy days and then it drops to like 35 at night.
Mhm.
No chance of surviving that. So fall is definitely upon us. I'm like, please just give me another month before we start seeing snow. So I
Yeah.
can go down to see my parents and then I don't want to have to worry about snow while I'm down there. So
Yeah, for sure.
after that, well, I still don't want snow, but bring on the cold. Let's build a hockey rink.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, that was what I did last weekend. A bunch of the guys came up. We put up the rink.
Nice.
Record time. It took us about an hour.
Holy crap.
Yeah, which is impressive. We've definitely, I mean, leveling it 2 years ago, the
Mm.
ground
Makes a big
makes it
difference.
so much easier. There's like,
Yeah.
we used to have to bring out cement blocks to like like lean it up because the
Yeah.
water rate would be so heavy that it would knock it over.
Yeah.
So we haven't done the tarp or anything yet. We'll wait till it's colder the season then, but it's just nice having extra hands to put in
Oh, for
all
sure.
those screws
Yeah.
for all the boards and everything. So, and then afterwards, we played some outdoor games in it. We like to play basically like street hockey, but on grass. So it works.
Nice.
And knock on wood, nobody's been hit in the face by anything. So that's nice as well. The weekend before that, I went down to Matt's house and we had a nerd night where we got together with some other people and he had bought this new game, Eclipse 2 something of the Dawn, and it has about 10 million pieces to it and like a 40-page rule book. But it is like all those things where you spend like 45 minutes watching a video about how to play it. But then once you play it, it makes sense, kind of. It was a lot of fun. This is like we've done this before with another game he had called Merchants of Venice, which was similar but different. And the biggest thing is like just playing again before 2 to 3 years go by and you forget everything
Yeah.
that you learned and you have to do it again.
Uh-huh.
So hopefully we do that because it was a lot of fun, even though I got completely smoked. But that's okay too. It's a learning process.
Yeah.
And aside from that, this week, for the first time, I made my own bacon jam. So I
Whoa.
can talk about this because I won't edit the podcast and release it before Sunday, or if I do, I guess they can hear it here first. But we're doing a burger cook-off on Sunday, which will be our first one since in like 5 years. Holy shit, time.
Oh my gosh, really?
Well, because we were gonna do one at Alden's old place, and then Sully got COVID that we found out like the day
Oh
of or
no.
something. This was 2020. Maybe it was 21. So 4 years. But anyway, and then Alden wanted to build an outdoor kitchen at his new house and host the first burger cook-off there. And then he, when he was away, his kitchen caught on fire. And so he had to rebuild the inside kitchen first or redo that. And then they got pregnant, so he had to build the baby a
Right.
nursery. So yeah, the extra outdoor kitchen has kind of been put on the back burner, but we finally told him like, dude, we're doing it. We got to do it. So the theme this year is a burger and a drink with some kind of theme to them. So I'm going nostalgia is my theme, and I want to do a play on peanut butter and jelly. So I'm doing peanut butter, but then bacon jam as like a higher
Ooh,
adult
jelly.
version of
Yeah.
jelly, something that's sweet. Bacon jam is weird. If you've never had it or made it, it's basically just onion jam with bacon in it. Um, but it is interesting. I think it will go together strange, but good. And then my
Okay.
drink's gonna be a Oreo chocolate shake. So kind of like just
Wow.
trying to put together your childhood in different ways. I don't know. We'll see if it works. Like every year that we do this, I haven't tried it yet. I always just make it when I make it, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. I'd say it's probably 75% works.
But you've tried your bacon jam,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah, that took like 3 hours of cooking down.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's
Does it just
process to
like
make that
it
shit.
like it like sits and it's like a
Yeah,
slow.
you gotta like make the bacon, and then you take that out, and then you cook the onions in the bacon fat, and then you add some sugar to it, then you mix it, then you put the bacon back in with my recipe called for coffee and water, and then you let that basically work itself down, reduce down until it's more like jelly-ish.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a process.
Interesting. No, I have never made it. I think I have had it on a burger or some such kind of thing, but
I feel like it's a thing I've always heard about cooking competitions. I don't know if I've ever actually had it. So that was the other thing too, is I don't really know the mark I was looking for. I was like, I just wanted to be sweet and kind of bacon, and it's there.
I mean, maybe that's the better thing is not having you're setting the bar yourself.
Right? I don't know if it's fucked up because I've never tried it. So yeah, I'll report back on that next episode. And maybe I'll post it on Instagram, but probably not. And that means this is your every episode reminder to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, guys, as we are at Adult Book Club 21. That is Adult Book Club. Then the number 21. You can find us on all three of those platforms and view and stream and click and like and whatever you want
All
to do.
those things. We both did just post to our Instagram, so you're welcome.
That you guys could know
People.
what's happening right
Yeah,
now,
right now.
days before the episode is released. So, on that note, we move back to the book, which once again was Everybody Knows by Jordan Harper. Everybody Knows was the third novel published by Harper and debuted in 2023. His next book, A Violent Masterpiece, which deals with similar themes to Everybody Knows, is due out next year. He has also published two other anthologies of short stories and works as a television producer on shows like The Mentalist and Gotham. He is currently adapting his debut novel, She Rides Shotgun, into a movie that is set to star Taron Egerton. So, kind of all over the Hollywood scene, which makes a lot of sense for this story.
Yes.
So, Tasha, if you want to read us the jacket, we will get started.
Okay. Let me make it bigger. Welcome to Mae Pruitt's Los Angeles, where nobody talks but everybody whispers. As a black bag publicist tasked not with letting the good news out, but keeping the bad news in, Mae works for one of LA's most powerful and sought-after crisis PR firms at the center of a sprawling web of lawyers, flacks, and private security firms she calls the Beast. They protect the rich and powerful and depraved from by any means necessary. After her boss is gunned down in front of the Beverly Hills Hotel in a random attack, Mae takes it upon herself to investigate and run headfirst into the beast's lawless machinations and the twisted systems it exits. Oh my gosh, it exists to perpetuate. What follows is a roving neon joyride through a Los Angeles full of influencers pumped with pills and fillers, vast mansions, footsteps away from vast homeless encampments, crooked cops, and mysterious wrecking crews in the middle of the night.
Nice. I will say, as we touched on before we started recording, I thought this was like a 1940s, 50s noir. And all you have to do is read the back to see that is not the case at all. Chalk one up for the home team. This has been, whenever I see something, a book that I'm like, oh, that could be something, because it's usually on the internet, I take a screenshot and then I just keep it in my photos forever.
Hmm.
Eventually, like when we're looking for something or I don't know, just see it.
Scrolling through your photos.
Yeah. So the reason I knew about this was on its release day or publication day, Harlan Coben tweeted about it. He's like, "Happy publication day, Jordan Harper." And I was like, "Oh, all right, maybe someday." That was
Yeah.
obviously 2+ years ago. So
Yep.
eventually it works itself out. And so getting into the book, as always, we start with our characters, and once again, we have 2 points of view. So by order of appearance, I was wondering what you thought of May.
Basically a badass. I mean, like a really good female lead, I think, in particular because she's not got some of the naivete that exists a lot of times with the female leads. She she doesn't pretend that her job is glamorous. She like knows how kind of shitty the people are that she's working for and so forth, or like doing the bidding of. I don't know. I guess she's a realist, and I appreciate that. I also can appreciate, though, that she kind of wars with herself about the moral implications of what she does. And that feels very real. So she's easy to relate to, I guess. Obviously, I would never be able to do a job like that for a variety of reasons, but
I liked that she doesn't lie to herself, and
yeah.
I found it interesting how much she focuses on people's exterior and the masks that they portray, and how
Hmm.
she mentions like, oh, they let something slip by, or like even sometimes
Yeah.
it's just in the eyes. And I wonder how much of that, like, I wonder if she's 100% about hers, because at some point she
Oh.
does talk about hers cracking as well,
Hmm.
or things getting by, that it falls or whatever. But I wonder how much, if we're reading somebody else reading May, if she's really as not
Adept at
bold.
it as she thinks.
Yeah, because I think that she has to have that confidence in order
Mm.
to keep doing what she's doing. She has
Hmm.
to show this calm, cool, and collected. And obviously, she's very successful at what she does.
Right.
People have come to rely on her in the worst moments. Most of the things that they've put themselves into and have to get out of because they have money. But obviously, there is a reason why she can be so confident. It's because she's so good at this.
Right.
I will say the thing that made her more realistic. First of all, I can completely understand getting so deep into this because you want to know the stories, you want to know
Yeah.
the secrets, you want to know the mechanisms behind this big ball that is moving, that is Hollywood. So, like as a person of curiosity, I would be the same way, where you just want to know every bit of tea. But then there's that other side of it where it weighs so heavily on her, and you see how, like, she can't think too hard about what she's doing or what she's done because she still is at least an okay person
Yeah.
that knows that there's a lot of shitty things that she's being a part of and that she's helping kind of keep going.
Hmm. Absolutely. I think that um, yeah, like I appreciate the most that she doesn't lie to herself like that about the shittiness of things. And that she kind of does, um, not necessarily like that she's, I mean, I'm sure she likes that she's good at her job, but the what that means for her morally is something she struggles with, and I think that's real.
And just wanting to be a part of something bigger than what she grew up in,
Yeah.
wanting to make a name for herself, and this is the way she knows how. Like again, all of it was very relatable because you can understand how she got to the place she is.
Yeah.
And then I think you would just hope that if you were in that position, either one, you wouldn't be doing it, or two, you would be trying to figure out, I don't know, how to salvage some decency from it
Right.
if you could.
Right.
Which I think we do see. I mean, we do. That's the whole point of the story, I think, is
Yeah.
part of a salvage arc for herself, which we can get into later. The other part I really appreciated was her dog, Mandy. And I appreciated that she named the dog after herself. She had taken
Yeah.
her middle name, May, when she got into this mess. And in this wonderful rescue dog who is a mutt of all different breeds and is very stinky with her farts, but just loves you no matter what, she gave her name, and I see that as like her, I don't know, tucking away that piece of herself so it still exists, kind of as like a reminder of, I don't know, what she wants to be, maybe, or something. So I appreciated Mandy for that.
Yeah, and I liked their relationship in that she went and got Mandy like after a particularly harrowing situation. Mandy's very much like an emotional support dog, and I think that's totally valid given her daily grind. To have somebody who loves you unconditionally, doesn't matter what you do for a living.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's yeah, extremely relatable too. Yeah.
And then just the last thing I had on her was her relationship with Dan, her boss, and how much she stressed the appreciation she had for him because he treated her like a man, basically, where
Yeah.
he never made advances on her. It was always about her merit, about they were equals in their own way. Obviously, he was her boss, but still, he treated her incredible. Where every other boss she had ever had, it was always about trying to sleep with her or about her appearance or whatever. Where with
Yeah.
Dan, it was never that way, which made when he got started getting cryptic at the beginning of the book, made her very worried because they were maybe they were going to a bridge they had never crossed, and then that was going to change their relationship. So
Yeah.
I liked how much they stressed that as well because Dan, while not a great husband, at least seemed like an okay guy.
Yeah, he had his pros and cons.
Yeah. So I liked that. It was a nice full picture of her.
hmm
And again, I think relatable in its own way, as you said, is a big takeaway from her. And for the men, you get to relate to Chris. Sure. So Chris is our ex-sheriff turned fist. I was wondering what you made of him as our second point of view.
I think he was kind of like a somewhat stereotypical trope scenario, like ex-cop turned
Security-ish.
bodyguard type
Yeah.
thing. I think that he did kind of buck the system in that he wasn't like totally devoid of feeling, and he also isn't just like a big dumb guy. Like he's quite clever. And he knows that there are lots of games being played, and I just I while he's not necessarily relatable in any kind of physical sense,
Yeah.
um, I did appreciate that he was like a little bit of an offshoot of a somewhat normal trope guy that we'd see. I think he was believable, I guess I'd say.
I think the biggest thing that stood out to me about him was his vulnerability. And
Mm.
not that he showed that to the people he was beating up, or in that line of work as he was dealing with his bosses or whatever, but even just with his what he believed were heart attacks and how
Yeah.
he would keep going through that checklist that he had because he got so nervous about it. He talked to a doctor and he would have to, as he had this pain shooting through his chest, he'd be like, no, no, my left arm's okay. And this is happening. So probably just having panic attacks over and over again. And he talks about how he used to be on steroids and how big he was and all that. So there's like a lot of that past abuse and of narcotics as we see as well. So like obviously he hasn't treated himself very well. And I think he just is this big fisted guy who knew what he was going to be his whole life, which was going to be a cop. And then he got into that world and found that other side of him. He even talks about that, like his when he gets angry and how that power, it can be scary, but at the same time, he's also scared that he enjoys it so much.
Yeah.
hard cut for all you YouTubers. Again, the audio doesn't know about this. And the thing that I resonated, I think, the most with me was how he was basically just a rudderless ship. Like he
Yeah.
was so, after losing that job as a sheriff and taking the fall, again, he did it, but he didn't bring anybody else down with him. Everybody was doing it.
Right.
But losing that, he finds this security job working for Blackguard, which is fine, but he knows he's a fist for the bad guys at this point and doing kind of the opposite of what he wanted to. He lives in a shitty apartment in Koreatown
So
that's
trophy.
filthy as fuck. Like they make a big point of that scene where he actually like cleans it up, his cleaning montage. Good job, Chris. But I think you can relate to the fact that he lost his purpose and he doesn't know what to do now.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of similarly, I think, looking for his redemption story as well, or
Hmm.
something to cling on to, which
Hmm.
his past relationship with May, as they bring that up, is something he obviously still holds on to pretty strongly. So
Yeah.
I thought both of them worked really well to grab you. And obviously, like their lifestyle is very action packed. This
Totally.
this story was very much about like Joe Abercrombie's Half a King, where you don't take breaks. We're just going
Right.
beat to beat to beat to beat. And like even getting into it happened very quickly with the mystery behind what's going on with Dan. I mean,
Yeah.
the first scene with May where she's responding to Hannah Hurd, who's a
Yeah.
child actress turned mess of her life at this point as an adult actress and dealing with her latest uh, problems. And she talks
Yes.
about all the other cleanup she's had to do for us. So like it really grabbed you from right off the bat. And I think both these characters did well in their own way, where as you went back and forth, basically every chapter, you weren't feeling, oh, we're going back to Chris now. Like I think they both held
Totally.
up well.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. It was very much a page turner. I think that part of that, like you said, their lifestyles are so speedy and intense, that helps a lot. But they also are very like real characters. It didn't feel like you were reading something so incredibly fictitious that they couldn't possibly be real. They're not like perfect at everything. It was just very, I mean, flawed characters are good characters, but it wasn't annoying to read.
Yeah.
I
And it
think you did
wasn't
a good balance of,
And like you said, it wasn't perfect. They made mistakes. They
yeah,
fumbled. They showed their stress. They showed, yeah, that they were human. Very believable in both rights. So well done there. Moving away from our characters, let's talk about the world that Harper made, which is that both May and Chris work in the PR industry in different ways, but it's basically cover up for all the terrible things that the rich and famous do. I was wondering what you thought of this world that Harper shined a light on, and how believable did you think he made it?
I have just a low enough expectation of humanity, to sort of think that it's super accurate. Like, I don't have a whole lot of experience with California, LA, whatever. Certainly I haven't lived there. Um, but it it seemed realistic while also feeling like maybe a little over the top and sensationalized. Um, Maybe like a little bit more sinister,
Mm.
like an exaggerated version of reality, which I can appreciate because it kind of really gets a point across about how maybe if it's not as intense, but that kind of stuff does happen. Like it felt a lot, yeah, like you could step right into it and yeah, realistic.
I think it rang with some stories that we've heard or like you've heard through the grapevine, whatever, like suddenly dead celebrities, like
Mm.
overdoses, things like that, the cover-ups that go into that kind of situation.
Yeah.
Uh, and then there's other stuff. Well, staying on that track for now, like the whole backstory that becomes one of the main focuses, where it's the producer who took advantage of tween kids at his house because he was in a position of power, like basically like that Nickelodeon documentary that had come
Yep.
out, like we've seen with other men in power that
Yep.
It's not rumor, it's actually true. So I think basing or putting those kind of stories in there made it so, yeah, maybe some of it's could be more sensationalized, but you could see, yeah, no, this probably 98, 99, 100% happens for sure.
Yeah, like it's absolutely rooted in reality.
And I can understand where like I think he did a good job feeding it to us too with
Mhm.
how May peeks behind the curtain, how
Mhm.
gradually we get the story, how it's not one after the other, but it's like understanding she has multiple clients. How we started with the Hannah Heard situation and her just covering up a black eye, but learning that this where she got it was this rich guy who pays women to come out on his yacht, which sounds like a Taken scenario, but yeah, I chose to be taken kind of scenario. But again, believable. And then that kind of kicks us off into learning how May made her mark, I guess, at this firm, taking care of that cover up of her child star friend or whatever. Not May's, but Hannah's. And then it goes on from there, where like each story that we build upon, again, there's nothing that you're like, no, no, that can't actually happen. And the fact that it's not just Hollywood actors, they take on the people behind the scenes, and then they go into like the corruption of officials and both state and city, and then the businessmen, and like it just makes sense. Is you know those people that have money,
Yeah,
yeah, they
whatever they
bring so
want.
much, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so I don't know. I've never had that much money. I probably never will. But I can't understand these people that like it just seems like I need to what's the next thing I can do? How do I spend more? How do
How
I
do
go
I
more
raise
crazy?
the bar?
Yeah. What other things can I do to humans? Like it's that, oh, I've hunted every game in the world, so now I'm gonna hunt humans on my private island because that's
Oh
obviously the
man,
next step.
surviving the game. Um, I do also appreciate the possibly, hopefully exaggerated look into or behind the scenes of those cops. That was intense actually.
Yeah.
Um, and on so like I don't think that it's that far of a stretch to assume that that kind of environment exists. And I mean, obviously, Chris talks a lot about has his past and how he, took the fall. As you said, yes, he did it, but he didn't throw anybody else under the bus. And that sort of weird brotherhood
Yeah.
thing, like hyper toxic masculinity and all of that, I think is so real. I think the type of people that strive to be cops are often not the best ones to have that kind of power. And this was like a really nice or good way. It wasn't nice. There wasn't anything nice about it. It was a good way to see that sort of the results of that.
Yeah, it really makes me wonder because that brotherhood that's created in there, that is what they promote and they all look for and everything. And it just keeps boiling over and over as again, you push the limits as far as you can. Like, not that this is the same thing, but I'd be interested because that seemed more like what you hear about maybe 10 years ago.
Sure.
I think there's a lot going on as social changes are hopefully happening, or maybe that's not the case anymore. But just from my own experience, I think back to like our high school football locker room and how important that connection was. And we were idiots there too, and it's all men. And so you
Boys
got
are
a whole bunch of
idiots.
testosterone and
Yeah.
you're 18, 17, whatever. So I wonder what that would be going back into a locker room nowadays, like 20 years later, and seeing how different that is, and then hoping that, again, this exaggeration of police officers, there are still those out there, and I'm sure especially in, yeah, places, cities and also rurals, and yeah, it
Mhm.
can be crazy, but hopefully that is something that is getting weeded out as it goes on.
We can only hope.
Yeah, maybe. And on that note, before we get into spoilers and the rest of the book, we have your get to know your podcaster question. And this is, an easy one, but I wanted us to maybe think about the pros and cons list. So, seeing how LA is as different from where we live as you can get. As our characters moved through it, what were some of the things that stood out to you that you would love or hate if you had to live there?
Okay, so the love portion, I did not write this down. I only wrote the thing I hated, but as we were talking, I thought about the thing that I would love about it, and that would be all of the variety of foods.
Mm.
They mention so many different. I was reading it and I was like, I want Korean. I want more Thai food. Like I want to explore like the taco places. Like I just the the wealth of options
Yeah.
in a place that's so big and so diverse would be literally chef's kiss. Um, and then I think I would hate the traffic.
Yeah.
Fully, like anytime they described driving places, which was often, I was like, I feel as though they're taking not enough time to get from point A to point B.
I completely agree with you on both. For me, that's something I always think about because especially where I live, like you guys can at least go to Burlington where there's a little bit more maybe. No.
Maybe a little bit.
I
I
mean,
don't know.
Keene, we couldn't even keep the Olive Garden. So,
Oh yeah, that's sad. No, but Burlington is now like
yeah,
probably just as dangerous as LA.
that's right. You guys were saying that. It's not what it
It's
used to be.
wild, yeah.
But that was the food, the cuisine, the cultures all mixing together was for sure what stood out to me because again, we live in a very whitewashed New England, where
Boring.
there's nothing here. And the idea where you could go see anything, do anything any day of the week, it's not, oh, this is only happening on Saturday or
Right.
whatever.
Or
Uh,
there's only like one bowling alley in like the entire northern part of my state. Like
well, at least it's a luxury bowling lane.
that's true.
But it does make me so I always wanted to like when I was younger, stay in Boston for a year. Like kind of like that year away. I know, but
Mm,
like just get
I just
that
don't
feeling
like
of city
Boston.
life. Well, that's fair. Or any city, right?
Yeah.
Just do like 1 year when you're old enough to drink so you can have the
Mhm.
whole experience and just see what it is. And it was pretty early on. I think I was like 24. I was like, that's already past me. Like I don't want to do that.
Yeah. Even when we go into Burlington, which is where we went for our anniversary dinner, we were like, could never live here, would
Yeah.
not want to. I mean, it's also a college town, which I think adds a certain shittiness,
Yeah.
as you know, being in the Keene area.
Yeah.
But it like, I don't know. I see your point about wanting to like experience it and really live in it. Visiting is totally different. You know, like when we've gone to New York City before, I have a very low tolerance for being around that many people. And I'm not,
Sure.
I mean, like I do Dragon Con and that's like actually being around that many people. It's the crush, the knowledge that there's that many humans in, for Manhattan's case, such a small area. It's freaking terrifying. LA, obviously, a bit more sprawly, whatever. But still, just like the sheer amount of people is on the one hand for a culinary aspect and like a activities aspect, really cool because you
Yeah.
got all of these options and this diversity, but so much. It's just so much.
Yeah, like there's more people in a city block than there are in our towns, probably.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, well, it would be cool to have more of that, more options,
Hmm.
especially when it comes to food and everything like that. My con was also obviously traffic, the amount of just people, as you were saying, the fact that she's like, well, I could just park and like walk 4 blocks before my car moved. And it's like, yeah, that sounds fucking miserable. I would be so upset all the time when that happened.
Oh my God. And just the traffic in general. Like there's some roads that I feel like, or highways or whatever, where you just, the number of people on that single road are probably more than my whole state,
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
yeah. Sorry, Angie, if we're pushing all the buttons right now.
I
The
think
other
she
thing,
knows. And where she lives is really nice.
it's better. Yeah, it's definitely a lot better. Um, okay,
Sorry.
it's all right. Second hard cut. Hey, video. Uh, so, and then the other thing I wanted to bring up as a pro
Mm.
is just being that close to the ocean, and the Pacific Ocean. Well, it's tough, right? Because New Hampshire, we have a beach. Technically, it's two beaches in one, but it's not great. And the idea of just how much coastline they have there and being able to just go and sit like on real beaches and like it being warm, like the weather, they always say is so
Yeah.
much nicer there than here. So there was some of that as I was thinking of this question, I was like, yeah, that'd be nice. If you
Yeah.
could be really rich and just have your own private place where nobody else could get to, and you could afford a giant helicopter and not have to deal with traffic, then it might be the place to live.
Yeah. Yeah. It might be. It might be.
And then the other con was just how much, and obviously it played an important part in the story about how much they talked about the homeless crowds and how there was camps, tent cities basically all over the city, and how that would I don't do well in those situations where I'm just
Yeah.
because I feel like how did you get here? I feel bad. Like how do you help them? How do you, all these
Yeah.
different things and it's not really something, obviously, it's not something we deal with at all where we live. There's
Mhm.
nobody coming up here to be homeless. It's very cold and not the
Yeah.
best
Not really
ideas.
the ideal climate.
But it was interesting when I was talking to Sully's buddies who came out from California. That was one thing they said about Boston was how much different the homeless population was even for them. And like they
Like
don't
just
live
less
so
number.
much less.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like they don't really for them like LA is their Boston as far as like we're concerned, like a few hours
Mm.
away, but even where they live, it's just so much more prevalent because of obviously the weather and everything. Like even when we were in Hawaii for our honeymoon 10 years ago, there's a lot of tent cities like along near beaches and stuff because it makes sense. Like it's nice weather all the time and
Yeah.
you set up there. So that was another thing that I'd be like, oh, this that would just make me constantly feel really bad.
I think going hand in hand with that is just the cost of living there, which
Yeah.
is likely why there's such a large homeless population. That would be another uh, difficult aspect.
Indeed. So, we thought of a couple nice things to say. You're welcome, LA.
Yeah.
Yeah, we really like your cuisine. And on that note, we're going to move into spoilers. But before we do that, we have your song. This is the pot that we're going into spoilers. If you don't know the book, get out! Because this is the pot that we're going into spoilers. It's time to learn what everybody knows, but only whispers all about in spoilers.
I see what you did there.
I read the book.
Yeah.
Uh, May connects her murdered boss Dan to a fitness instructor that he was having an affair with. While she is watching her, May runs into Chris, who has connected this group through the gunman that killed Dan and the fitness is yep. May Chris, who has connected this group through the gunman that killed Dan and the fitness instructor's boyfriend. That sounds weird. May runs into Chris, who has connected this group. No, May runs into Chris, who has connected the gunman that killed Dan with this group through the fitness instructor's boyfriend. The two decide to team up and stake out the house that is filled with influencers with wild parties and illegal side hustles. When they are ready to give up, Chris discovers the big secret as the group is hiding a 14-year-old girl who is pregnant. May connects the girl to a tween production that has been around for decades with rumors of the producer and others setting up parties for the teenage actors and getting them to drink, do drugs, and be molested. Everybody knows, but there has never been proof. Chris and May see this girl as their ticket out of the shit as her story is worth millions. They decide to rescue her from the group of influencers. Chris writes a bogus report to his bosses to get them off his back, and he and May flip one of the weaker of the crew, a roided out bro guy named Lotto. They give him a burner and tell him to get them the girl's location. When Lotto calls them, they miss it, and when they call back, they only hear background noise. They decide to check out the house, and they find all five of the influencers massacred. The pregnant girl, Nevaeh, isn't there, so they continue their search for her. Eventually, May connects with her through a game she plays and gives Nevaeh her number. Meanwhile, Chris is brought in for questioning by his boss and is pretty sure they have been trailing him and know what is happening. They believe the producer they would bring down was a small fish in Hollywood who was no longer useful. What they didn't realize was he had very powerful friends. May refuses to give up on the girl, and eventually they are able to get her away from the last influencer. She sets up a deal with a writer she was never able to flip while working her PR job, but on the way to the meetup, she sees that they've been sold out, and Chris's employer, Blackguard Security, was waiting for them. Mae escapes and asks Chris to check on another connection she had, a homeless man named Panko, who she may have unknowingly put into danger. When Chris goes to check on him, there is an explosion and Chris is left in intensive care in the hospital, but should pull through. Mae knows it's all over. She pulls out $50,000 in cash and sends Nevaeh back home to her grandmother in Oklahoma. The girl is angry to be passed along once more, but Mae tells her there is no longer a story here. The producer is not worth anything to his friends, and Mae knows they plan to kill him tonight to keep him quiet. That night, Mae stakes out the producer's house, and when she sees the Blackguard van show up, she calls and warns him, tells him to run out the back. When he makes it to her, she tells him that they have sold him out, and his only chance at survival is to bury them with the secrets he knows. Mae then burns herself by emailing all of her secrets out to journalists around the country, breaking every NDA she has ever signed. Exactly. So before we get into the investigation and all that, I want to start with Chris and Mae's relationship and how you think Harper handled that, both in the now and also as they remembered it, as there had been a relationship a couple years prior.
I actually really loved it. I think it was like not necessarily subtle because
Mm.
it was very out in the open and obvious and everything, the way that they both recollected about the past and stuff. And it was clear that they still had feelings for each other. I thought the chemistry between the two was really solid, particularly like buddy investigation style. Like they were a good team. Um, and I think that what you brought up before about how Chris remembers the relationship they had before and how it's kind of a thing that they both needed at the time, and I think that they probably still do need each other in that regard. I think that I appreciated that there was a romance aspect to it because he didn't like lay it on too thick, and it wasn't like a, does he like me? I think he likes me. I like him. And because that's really fucking annoying. Um, but yeah, I think overall I thought it worked with the characters and where they were in their lives
Yeah.
and what was going on with their jobs and stuff. It was good to have a cohort like that maybe could be something more. I was rooting for them.
Yeah, yeah, I was too. Again, just with the realism of it, it felt very much like an adult relationship,
Hmm.
where they kind of both knew where they stood with each other. They knew about the feelings they had, and I think they both understood why it hadn't worked before
Yeah.
and why, even though they may want to pursue it now, because they kind of just their worlds collide again unexpectedly, and they met on the job.
Right.
Because Chris was cleaning something up for Mae, and they kind of worked together, and that's how this started. And then they hadn't really seen each other since for I think a year or two, whatever it was. And then this happens where their two cases become one. So I liked how organically it felt, and
Yes.
also believably, because again,
Yes.
working in those same spheres, it makes sense that they would come together. As far as their previous relationship, I appreciated how Mae talked about how she couldn't lie to him, how the mask
Mm.
didn't work, and how that was so refreshing. But then she even admits that as the relationship went on, that became the reason it didn't work because she couldn't hide anymore. Like when she wanted to hide that part from herself, probably the part when she's with Mandy and she's like, I'm just a normal person and everything's okay and the world's not as shit, whatever. Chris was that constant reminder that it is because they would talk about their jobs. They knew about the darkness around them, so they couldn't pretend to be something else. And like as she
Right.
mentions, that's why relationships don't work with other people. It also was a reason that this one ended up petering out. So I appreciated that honesty and how it seemed like they had that honesty with each other. And while they both remembered the relationship for the good parts that they
Mm.
had, and there wasn't any animosity there. I liked that they also knew now that they needed to focus on the job. And
Yeah.
if they let that other shit get in the way, it would cause, they'd lose focus. I
Right.
really appreciated that they actually like vocalize that because how often do we read books where like either they say it and then they do it anyway, or they
Right.
just fucking do it right in front of you. You're like,
Right.
ah!
No, I appreciate that it was like I guess kind of a slow burn, but also like not the it wasn't the highlight. It wasn't like the reason that this book happened was so that they could get together and bang. Like that wasn't the goal. I do want to just go back to what you said about her sort of vocalizing that she couldn't lie to him. She had to like tell him the truth. I think that it's a weird juxtaposition of like good and bad, like that she couldn't lie to him because they both I imagine it would be difficult if you were in a relationship, if you're in that role, your job was such as it is, and you were with a partner that had no clue.
Yeah,
And it would feel very isolating to not be able to share or not have that person, even if you're sharing, not have that person fully understand what's going on. So I think that there's that level of understanding between the two of them where they can share those sort of gritty details, but then also not, I don't know, like I think it's unhealthy to just pretend everything's okay
for
when
sure.
it's not. So I can understand what she's saying about it being like too real because there's no time when you can turn that off.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know, that's what Mandy brings to the table. I also really loved how Mandy loved Chris.
Yeah, I loved how Mandy came in after their first relationship, but
Yeah.
immediately connected with Chris. I thought that was really good to
Hmm.
see. It like proves that there's still a good guy in there. And
Yeah.
on your point, like hide if you had somebody who didn't know the industry or whatever, you couldn't tell them what you did and be like, no,
Right.
no, like I had to. Like they
Right.
would see you a different, I don't know, darkness in you or whatever. Like I think it'd be a lot harder for them to just understand that that's the job.
Right. And you can kind of compartmentalize as best you can the job from like who you are as a person.
Yeah.
But I think there's obviously a lot of bleed over.
Yes.
And over time, I think that's what you were saying, what Chris was kind of struggling with. Like he's still a good guy for the most part, but he's doing all of these pretty not great things. And even like when he was in that tattoo parlor with the cops and kind of seeing it from maybe an outside perspective that he hadn't necessarily considered before, that level of privilege of just like doing what they do.
Firing your guns off like in the middle of a crowded LA
Which is
tattoo parlor.
insane.
Yeah.
And then also just like making this tattoo artist. I don't know, just that whole
Yeah.
scene was very weird. And it was strange to me too, because he was like, on the one hand, he kind of felt comfortable in that space, but then also a little bit uncomfortable because he's once removed from it.
Right.
And I don't know, I just think having a partner that has that kind of baseline understanding and does a similar thing would be more benefit than a negative. But I don't know, I really I wanted them to stay together.
Why did it just work out for the kids? Yeah. I
Yeah.
I do appreciate that they still had that moment where they bang. Like it at least
Mhm.
they had that, I don't know, closure moment to it.
Yeah.
They both Chris vocalizes it, I think, after he's burned, where he's like, we could still run away. Like we could still get out. Yeah,
I wanted that so bad.
we're not gonna save the girl, or
Yeah.
we're not gonna break the beast, but
Yeah.
we could still try to be somebody else. And I think part of that is he's obviously very ready for that, but I think Mae isn't yet. Like Mae still wants to make a mark. She wants to, I think part of it is make all of this worth something.
Something.
Like so I think that's why she ends up doing what she does, which we'll get into later. But I did just how much it meant a lot to both of them, but I think for Chris it was like he's grabbing at his last straws a lot more, where Mae is like, I still have things I need to accomplish, I think.
Yeah, I think she still has that fire in her, and Chris has been like tamped down.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask what you think of their ages. Are they close in age, far apart in age? I always got the impression Chris was older, not necessarily significantly, but like he gives me the vibe of ex-cop who obviously he got out of the force because of other reasons, but
Yeah.
the kind of thing where it's like his body's failing because he's a little bit older and he isn't quite as, spry as he used to be.
I didn't think it was crazy. I would think most are like 5, 10 years
Yeah,
apart.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was thinking Mae is probably like late 20s to early
Early
30s. And
30s.
then
Yeah.
Chris would like at most be early 40s, maybe.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
But yeah, I think he's also lived obviously a lot rougher life.
Yeah.
And that was another thing I appreciate, even though they have this, they're so open and so available to each other emotionally. He still, I think it was after he got his ass kicked by the
Mhm.
cops when they turned on him because they thought he was ratting on them. Uh, and she has to help him bathe and
And
everything and
he's
clean
like
himself up.
struggling to let her do it.
Yeah, and he's like trying to hide parts of himself. Like even though they have such a connection and such a strong pull towards each other, he still is not. I don't know. It's
He's
probably
not ready
that.
to show his vulnerability.
Yeah, he's so open about it internally when we hear about
Yeah.
it, but to actually show it to somebody else was still a big thing for him. So again, just made it again relatable, realistic. Like
Believable
it
people.
felt
Yeah.
even though you couldn't put yourself in their shoes, you could put yourself in this kind of relationship and understand where they were coming from.
Well, and it makes them so much more endearing to read about. And like you're rooting for them as a couple, but you're also rooting for them in terms of the storyline. Like they're the good guys, even though they're not necessarily always doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that I don't know, I appreciate the level of love story that existed within the larger story. And I think that the yeah, I don't know. I think I just it's like a good shipper kind of thing. Like I'm
Yeah.
getting a good vibe from the whole setup.
I think it helped too that we're not seeing their darkest moments.
Sure.
We hear about Chris and what he was doing
Sure.
with planting evidence and taking drugs,
Yeah.
selling drugs and all, but like we're not actually seeing it firsthand. So the worst thing we see him do is beat up a coked out DJ, right?
Right.
And threaten some very rich people. And the worst thing we see May do is cover up a woman, Hannah, there getting attacked during her trip abroad to the rich person's home.
Yeah.
So we're not seeing Hannah covering up a dead body basically and having to deal with all that. So I think that helps too, where we can, it's like anything, you hear the stories and that's one thing, but if you see it happening, that's going to change your perspective on the person.
Yeah, and I think because of that, you can judge these characters by their intentions and not their actions because you're not seeing you're not seeing the really bad stuff actually happen. Yeah,
Brings
I
us
think
back
that's,
to Blood Over Brighthaven. Does your
yeah.
intentions matter?
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I thought that was the right amount to put in there because again,
Hmm.
it gave us another level of connection with them, brought our stories together. And at that point, as you're seeing the story through both their eyes, once the investigation comes together, they're each getting their individual parts forward and we're moving the whole,
Yeah.
like it helps with the pacing too, as we're getting the whole picture that way. So I thought overall it wasn't overly in your face with any part of it, and it really added to connecting with them. So I thought the way he handled it was really strong.
I agree. I agree.
So
Like
moving
if it
to
were a show, I would totally ship them. Like,
nice. So moving to that investigation and the why that we learned for all of this death, I was wondering what you thought of basically that level of our story as we learn about the 14-year-old girl who's pregnant and then death that follows her.
yeah, I mean, I think the aspect of like someone rich and powerful pulling the strings is completely believable. That totally tracks for me. Um, I think that their investigation of the whole thing was sometimes a little whiplashy, mostly because there were just a lot of names and people involved and like connections that they were making that it was just a little bit hard to follow it sometimes, being like, okay, that was that guy who was part of that thing and that, which I guess makes it more page turny in that it's very like stringboard.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that was the biggest issue for me was just the keeping things straight, keeping track of what's what and who's who and who's related to what. Especially because like they often will jump around and being like, okay, there's some like May's over here doing this thing and Chris is over here doing this thing. And I was like, wait, how did okay, right, that's that other guy that she was working with that did the thing. And So yeah, I mean, I think the overarching story is super believable and the interconnectedness of it. I really appreciate stories that have that kind of layering. Um, and it definitely was edge of your seat, even the stuff that was kind of like not necessarily action.
Yeah. I liked how it made sense as far as their investigation went, that because they were in the industry, they had an idea of how to beat the industry. Like they knew
Yeah.
the steps they would normally take, so it's just I have to take the opposite of those steps. How May had worked in this world long enough to understand the teenage girl and their thought process, like putting together that she could connect to her on that game or try to find her that way, as they didn't know where she was because she had that small connection with the girl's grandmother and found this out and found out her username and just had to try to find her, whatever. I liked how the story made sense. And as you're saying, yeah, when like May kept having to go into work because she's doing this all on the down low and she's dealing with Ward Parker and that whole scenario. And you've got Chris dealing with his bosses at Blackguard and then the next higher ups and everything. Like, yeah, it definitely got convoluted a little bit with the amount of people and situation that was going on, but I did appreciate
Yeah.
levels. I did appreciate as it came together that all of it was at least for a reason. Like even Ward Parker's situation obviously came into a big play here. So I liked that we weren't
Been
just
on these
fed all
weird
this.
goose
Yeah, it
chases.
wasn't all red herrings or whatever
Yeah.
trying to dry off. Like I think it also helped that this was more like crime thriller. It wasn't
Yeah.
mystery thriller. So we knew who the bad guy was.
Sure.
And then eventually we find out who the bad guy above him is, like the
Yeah.
actual reason why all this is happening, and we learn about them. So it wasn't like we're sitting here trying to be like, oh, who's actually the villain here? Like kind of everybody's a villain, except for Nevaeh, the 14-year-old girl, because everybody else is in it for themselves. Like even May's boss, who she kind of had this fear of, we see how quickly he bends over for the next guy in line who's taking control of him, and same thing with Chris's boss at Blackguard. Like I loved that moment where the helicopter comes flying in, and then Chris, because he's the body man of the son of the guy who owns the company, he like goes and threatens him and burns that bridge. But he's like, I need to know who the fuck that is and everything you know about him. The kid's like, my dad's worth 50 million. That helicopter is like 15 million. So that's, that shows you how big that guy is.
And I also appreciate that it was sort of like a a shadow guy, like somebody so high up that even Chris and May, who are in the mix with everything, had no clue that this was the guy who was the master puppeteer. Which again, totally tracks. Like those kinds of layered scenarios, it makes sense that there's some almost ethereal being way, way up at the top.
And the fact that every time they brought up his name, whoever they were talking to would be like, oh, you don't want to mess with that, like, etc. Like,
Yeah.
I did wonder at what point were they going to pull out? And again, this is probably that redemption arc where May is trying to make up for all the wrong she's done, and she sees this 14-year-old girl as somebody she can physically save and get out of this mess.
Yeah.
So she latches onto her. But even once Chris learns this information, he goes to her and is like, we're cutting the cord.
So
That's the
dangerous.
same time that May had made contact with Nevaeh for the first time. And she's like, I found her. We're going to get her. And it's like, ah!
Yeah.
So,
And that moment where Chris gets taken in for the what is basically a normal lie detector test kind of thing, but he like knows that they're onto him. He found the tracker and all that stuff. That was like heightened
mm,
intensity for sure. I was like not thinking he was going to give up the game intentionally, but he almost was like, I'm not okay.
yeah. And like the fact that he could feel the people behind the double pane mirror or whatever, that they're never there. And he's like, everyone
This is
can
so
tell.
different.
Yeah. They did add that stress. The other thing I liked about our big mysterious big bad was just the story they told about him with Chris's
The
boss and his
painting.
kid, the Picasso, where he's like,
Yeah.
he bought a $20 million Picasso and slashed it down the middle and hang it in his foyer. So if you come to his house, he says, I don't give a fuck about 20 million. What do you think I give a fuck about you for?
I also really appreciated how Chris understood that message immediately. And when
Yeah.
he was telling May, May was kind of like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Which, like, same girl. I would be like, what do you mean?
Did he make the art better?
Yeah. Like, is he just, is that like a fetish? Is that,
Oh, yeah. I did also appreciate when as they're staking out the house. I forget what they actually called it, but
clout house?
what was it?
Clout house?
Clout House. Yeah, the house full of the influencers who were part of this initially. I appreciated how they went to the party and Chris is like, I've seen this before. Like these people are so terrified about what they've gotten themselves into that they are just like
Going
letting loose of
balls to the
everything,
wall.
doing all the drugs, doing all the drinking, just
Yep.
going absolutely not letting wild. And then the fact that they don't really see that that's happening to them where Chris gets sloppy with people following him and like he finds the tracker, but then he doesn't even think about how obviously they know where he lives and his
And where
parking
he parks
spot
his car.
and all that. The fact that they made mistakes, I thought made it more, again, believable and more interesting because it takes
Totally.
away that belief that our main characters are bulletproof.
Yeah. Yeah, and bulletproof in a such a designed way. You know, sometimes I feel like when there's a character that's so great and so rarely makes mistakes, then the only mistake that's made is very like narratively important.
Yeah.
Whereas these felt so much more natural, like all the things that they fucked up had consequences, but it also are things that make sense that they'd fuck it up. You know, it's not like some bumbling scenario. I also really appreciated with the Clout House and the when Chris had gone in and taken the gun out of that drawer. And then later, when they found all the bodies, was like, how different would things have been had I left that there?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it would have turned out great for any of the guys in the house or any of the people in the house, but at the same time, he bears a little bit of that responsibility, or at least he's what ifing enough to be like, I could have, my actions directly affected the outcome of.
This one person's life for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did find that interesting. I liked how it came full circle there. Because I can understand from Chris's point of view, he's like, if something happens where we're coming into this house, I don't want there to be a gun there. So, like, his
Yeah.
motives make complete sense. And obviously,
So,
he's not thinking of Kevin.
well, of course, why would he be thinking of like them being murdered? I think that's
Right,
far
right.
from.
But then for him to put that together again, like they were both smart in their own ways.
Yeah,
So that's another thing that I'm sure May would have never thought about, but that's how Chris looks at the world very tactically. And he sees kind of those breadcrumbs or whatever he puts together.
I think that's what makes them such a really good team is that they're bringing all those different things to the table. Like her knowledge of like how that world, that inner world works and what saying something like this really means or whatever. The double speak, I guess, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then Chris's tactical capabilities. Yeah, I think, oh man, buddy comedy show, although it wouldn't really be a comedy.
Yeah. Two other parts I wanted to touch on. The Ward Parker situation. So this is a guy who is like powerful in government in that he's like kind of influenced different races and stuff like that. And he's always kind of been a behind the scenes guy, but he's losing his power and his hobby is to bring men into his home and illicit sexual acts with them and then cause them to overdose on drugs. And one of them gets away. So this is part of the cover up, but they deem that he is no longer worth it. They're gonna let him go to jail for this. So May sees him as like an enemy of my enemy thing, thinking that
Mm.
he'll help her take out the beast because the beast is no longer working for him. Her going to him to ask about Kaiser, our big shadow bad guy, and really getting nothing new for it. Like, I don't know what she expected to get from that, but she gave up so much for nothing. And I was so mad at that. But it, like, again, it makes sense for our story. And I could see her doing it in real life because she
Totally.
thinks
Thinking
enemy
she's
is my
gonna get
enemy.
something.
She thinks she's smart, And like in this one, I was just like, that's such a because and Dan, she hears Dan's voice in her head that he's basically like, you can never trust this guy. Like he's always looking out for himself. There's a reason he's asking for these things.
That's the thing, that always looking out for himself. That I guess is an area where she really does show some naivete, which I said earlier she doesn't really have. Um, so she does have that. I
Just
think that ignoring Dan's voice in her head of the he's so self-serving was stupid
yeah,
because he's shown himself to be nothing if not that. Um, and Dan's voice has heretofore been a good help
yeah,
to her. Um, so I think that was definitely annoying that she, I think, was so laser focused on what you were saying of like the enemy of my enemy is my friend that she didn't really think about the consequences. Because in the moment, too, she's like, I don't know why he would want that stuff. And it's like, well,
yeah.
stop and think about it for a minute before you go giving up the goose.
Yeah. Again, that's where the fear and the anxiety and the stress is probably broken her to a point where she's taking risks that she wouldn't normally take.
And I think there was a little bit of a time sensitivity
Yeah.
aspect to it too, with like the looking for Nevaeh and having kind of a short window of making all of those connections happen and so forth, that it does make sense she would be a little more reckless than
Yeah. But you got to worry about the desperate ones because you never know where they're going to go. And yeah, that took a turn for sure.
yeah.
The other one I wanted to touch on was I liked the fact that the reporter she went to that she could never turned
Mm.
her in. And again, just
Well,
showing that power, the money that they have, where instead of interviewing Nevaeh and getting her story, it talked about how like basically she had a one-on-one with some incredibly powerful person that she would never
anybody can
get.
be bought. I
Exactly.
mean, I find that, I mean, okay, here I am being like, she's not naive. It's also naive of her to think that because she's trying to buy this person, someone else isn't going to also.
Hmm. I think hoping that she would that the woman wasn't gonna sell her out. Yeah, I wonder how that happened.
Mm,
Right, because it was at the woman's private office, but did she tell somebody at work and then that word slips through the grapevine and then they make the connection or what? Because obviously something happened behind the scenes that May didn't know about. But yeah, I thought it was I liked that that happened because again, this was somebody that she had put so high above on a pedestal, and even she is not, like you said, above being bought. So again,
yeah.
felt realistic. Everyone's looking out for themselves. And even with this whole thing, like how Mae and Chris think that they're going to take 10% of Nevaeh's story and start their own firm. Like you can't do this and then stay in this job. Like people will come for you guys. If
Yeah.
you get 10%, you run. You run forever.
Yeah. I think that that's, oh God, again, some naivete of of Maze in thinking that um well, first of all, thinking that this guy was as low in the totem pole as he was, or, yes, he might be low, but it doesn't mean that he's not connected to
Right.
somebody who's not that low. That's silly of her to think. But that that this isn't gonna just be a massive like WMD of information.
Especially once she talks to, I think it was Hannah who first told her about the parties
Yeah.
because she dealt with this as a kid.
Yeah.
And she mentions how it wasn't just the producer Eric, it was other men too. Like, who do you think those other men are? And like that's the thing that bites them in the ass is assuming Kaiser or somebody close to him who he does care about is going to be mentioned in this as well. Like it's like anything, as soon as you get a piece of the syndicate or whatever, especially somebody in the little bit we see of Eric, the producer, you can tell he's gonna squirm and flip and tell everything. Like he does not seem like the guy who's gonna hold his secrets in. So I think they all knew this would just be the beginning of the unraveling.
Yeah, and I wrote down how very Epstein.
Yeah.
Because like if there's a party like this, and I mean, I think Hannah and Nevaeh both confirmed that there were many much people involved. So it's not as though, yeah, you're trying to take all of that down. I get that. But because you don't know which people are involved, that's pretty risky.
It's just the whispers, right? This would actually be
Yeah.
proof.
Right.
And I appreciated that they showed how that affected Hannah and
Mm.
I forget the guy's
The guy
name.
who died, yeah.
Yeah, the co-star. And then there was another one too, where it was like they were the top three, and like As If is what it was called, the like tween show that Eric produced and had these soda parties they called. But even then, Hannah commits suicide towards the end of the book, and she leaves like an Instagram post that's basically like, "Look what you did to me. Look what you made of me." And like
Yeah.
people even talk about how she went from this like rising star to something happened, and then she became like addicted to drugs and alcohol, and just kind of went a different way. And it's just showing that like, yeah, there's a lot of terrible people doing terrible things to people that affects them for the rest of their fucking lives.
Yeah, I mean, like you said at the start of things, like that Nickelodeon
Yeah.
documentary, very much like that. I just keep the parallel of Hannah and like Ariana Grande in my head. But yeah, those child actors in such a, I'm not like the parties aside, just the world of trying to make it in Hollywood
Yeah.
feels very problematic.
And even the discussion they have here in the book about the parents, where like there's some mothers that's part of it is Catherine, the influencer who's killed and
Yes.
is Dan's secret girlfriend. She like has these yoga classes that are attended by the teenage girls, which is how she knows
Um,
Nevaeh. But
yeah.
so there's girls there like Nevaeh whose grandparent lives in Oklahoma and can't be out here with her. So it's like under the guardianship of like a house mother who definitely has the best intentions.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But then even the other one, like I don't know which is worse, that or the other ones who the mothers are like standing there at the yoga class, like watching
Letting things happen.
the matron producer of this, and like they know, like even Nevaeh says, like one of her friends who lived with their parents was pissed at Nevaeh because Nevaeh got to go to the parties instead of her, and it's like she blames her parents. It's like
But they're actually looking
thank
out for
them.
your best interests. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, kids are never going to see it that way until they get
Yeah,
older.
obviously. Until they aren't molested at 14 and
Mm.
pregnant.
Hmm.
And again, this is like as we kept just digging through the shit of this world that he was building and being like, oh yeah, that sounds familiar. That sounds familiar. That was definitely one thing I struggled with this story is
Yeah.
being like,
It's
you
so real.
know, you know it's happening.
Oh yeah, for
Everybody
sure.
knows.
Everybody knows. Okay. Um, Before we go too much further about that, the title, there's a Leonard Cohen song called Everybody Knows that I listened to like not necessarily on repeat, but more than one time while I was reading this, and it really just it's a necessary piece.
That is Tasha's music recommendation of the episode.
It is. Go out and find that song. It's great. Anything Leonard Cohen is amazing.
Nice. Uh, So, moving away from the investigation, we have our ending where May saves the producer, Eric Algar, in hopes that he will release the secret and then burns herself to the press. Did you like how Harper wrapped this up, or were you hoping for something different?
So I like the idea, but it's mildly annoying that we don't get to see
If it works.
if it works.
Yeah.
And like I get that that's kind of the suspenseful way to end things and keep the hook. I don't know if the hook is at the end ever. Um, but I did like it. I think that it was a good kind of compromise of what she sort of set out to do. Um, I don't love that the guy's still alive because he's kind of a dick, but I hope that he has um, the right amount of cojones to follow through with it and I hope that the beast gets taken down. So yeah, it was mildly annoying not being able to see the results.
I think it was low risk, potentially high reward, or like
Sure.
low floor, high ceiling in fantasy.
Yeah.
So like Alger's gonna die no matter what. Like these people, with the amount of secrets he knows, he's not just gonna escape and be gone. Something will happen to him. So all she's doing basically is giving him a chance to expose the others. So I
Hmm.
appreciate that. I appreciate that she is taking a step back and thinking, how can I do the most damage? Because this guy's life is forfeit and he probably knows it.
Hmm.
So by showing him that,
That's smart.
yeah, by showing him that, maybe something more comes of it.
Yeah.
Or worst case scenario, they catch up to him tomorrow and he's still dead. So I don't think she's going to lose any sleep over that, obviously, and I think it just again gives him a chance to do more damage before he's taken down, assuming he doesn't. I don't know. He could also just do something stupid and be killed right away, but whatever. She's taking a chance. Um, as far as her releasing all of her stuff to the press, I wonder because the whole her boss kept saying, not just Dan, but her other boss there kept saying, like, if you want to tell the truth, surround it with lies. So it's hard to, like, tell enough stories that basically there's so much out there that they don't know what's true and what's not. Like aliens, who knows? That kind of scenario. So I wonder if her putting, and we don't know what she actually put into this
Oh, yeah,
email, but I wonder with her like shotgun blasting it. Granted, she's not going to have an opportunity to slowly leak this stuff out,
right.
but I wonder how much damage or how effective it will be shotgun blasting it out rather than maybe focusing on something. But I think she worried if she focused on just one
They
story,
get
then they would have a
lost
chance
in
to
the,
cover it or whatever. So there's more of a
yeah,
chance that maybe something sticks here. I do wonder how that worked out. And I could see as the writer being like, no, I don't want to deal with that. End.
totally. No, it's very much a,
Yeah.
well,
Choose
just
your own
wash
adventure.
that.
How this ends.
Yeah, and I do kind of appreciate that. It lets you um open world kind of guess at what could happen or say like I hope it was this and that's what I choose to believe happened.
They got him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as far as it was different, I think the only thing would have been if Chris and May somehow figured it
Rode
out.
off into the sunset.
But again, I don't think it would have been true to May, especially for what her character had discovered throughout this whole thing. And the fact that like she's turning a corner too, where she realizes she can no longer live in that PR world. Like we see she quits
But
her job and she's
that's what makes
preparing
me
to do
think it would
something more.
work.
That's why I could work, is that what you said?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what
I
makes
just
me think it
think
would
she
work is that like I've just literally set fire to this bridge and I can't be in this world anymore because I'm gonna be under threat or not taken seriously or whatever. So, Chris, let's just go somewhere else.
Yeah, and to be fair, I don't know how she lives in LA. Like, there's no way people are gonna let her get away with it,
Right.
you know?
Right.
Who knows?
Especially when you've gotten to the level of like checking your car for trackers every time you go out. Like that's some next level shit.
Yeah,
So, I don't know. Could you sleep at night?
yeah. No, I mean, I'll never have to deal with this. If I
No.
do, I've become way too big. But yeah, I couldn't live with that level of paranoia.
Oh, no, me either.
So moving on, just cleaning up some of the other storylines. What did you think of Chris trying to save Panko, who is the informant in the Parker Ward or Ward Parker case? I keep doing that. And kind of the idea that Ward Parker came up with to save his own ass by also covering up these, we didn't even talk about them, the homeless encampment fires.
I mean, the double play was like brilliant, of course, because he's really
Wretched.
evil and clever.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess well done. I mean, what a dick, but absolutely just somebody who is willing to do whatever it takes to save himself.
Hmm.
So I guess predictable in that case, um, but also a clever way to deal with his problem, I guess. I appreciated Chris trying to save Panko. That was like a bummer that it wasn't even close to an option, and a bummer that Chris got hurt.
Yeah.
I'm glad that he's alive. Like I was a little worried for a second that there would be a dead Chris, and that would have been a super bummer. Um, so yeah, I don't know. It did feel a little bit like um a bow for a loose end
Yeah.
kind of thing. Like if you have a frayed piece of thread and you burn it, that's what it felt like.
I just liked how it made everything make sense. Like,
Mm.
yeah, it's a bow, but it was full circle on our whole story about the homeless encampment
Mhm.
fires that kept coming up. You wondered where they were going with that. Turns out it was the son of like a congressman or whatever, who was a swing vote, of course, and something that the Beast
Some
wanted,
development
some
or
land
something.
deal. And Ward Parker sees this as a way because the son is arrested. So if you start this homeless fire while he's arrested using the notes he took from the police report, so you know exactly how to do it, so it looks like the same person. Oh, and also do it in this homeless encampment where my accuser, who survived when I tried to overdose him on
Can
drugs,
be.
lives, covers my ass as well. I just like that again. Those people in power, there's a reason. Like they're actually really smart, which is the scary thing.
Oh, for sure.
So it would make sense for someone like them to come up with that kind of bone.
Devious plan.
Yeah. And yeah, Chris getting hurt, I think that just also, I don't know, it it changes the way him and May's story can go. Like if he was
Yeah.
still with her, maybe if he hadn't gone through with that, who knows if he's trying to change her mind. The fact that she's basically saying goodbye to him, like I feel bad for Chris because he was looking for purpose. He kind of found it a little bit with her for a moment there, and now he's just fucking severely burned. His fucking hands are
Yeah.
fucked up from the tent fabric melting onto them,
And he's like all
and she's still
alone.
leaving him. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That was, I didn't love that bit because I felt like after they'd gotten to the point where they'd banged, it felt like maybe there would be something a little bit more solid and serious, especially given how focused he was on protecting her
yeah.
from the beast when he like was getting lie detector tested and stuff.
And even if she hadn't done it yet, they were both burned. So
Oh
they
yeah.
could have just gotten,
Yeah.
if she could have cut that off, they could have gone somewhere else. I appreciated that moment where they were out to dinner and he talks about how like they missed the call from the burner phone because it was in the
Yeah.
car. And he even says, like, if we just went home and banged instead of driving by the cloud house that night, I wonder how different things would have turned out.
Yeah.
'Cause
Like they
that's
would have just heard about it on the news and it wouldn't have been, yeah.
yeah, you also wouldn't be dealing with that visual of seeing that.
That too. Yeah, that moment happened and I was like, how Frederick Bachman of you to be like foreshadowing.
Uh, yes, it was good. Um, yeah. So the last thing I had was I just didn't know if you had any thoughts you wanted to touch on with Nevaeh.
Just poor Nevaeh. I mean,
Yeah.
like, it was too real. The plight of this poor, effectively completely alone young girl
Yeah.
who is being forced to grow up pretty fucking quick. She was actually really cool though. Um,
She was
seemed
very
like she
grown
had
up.
yeah, very grown up, had a very good head on her shoulders. Like I certainly did not act that way at 14. And I think she was very strong in that she recognized her situation for what it was. Like, and I appreciate too that she says Catherine had been so helpful in helping her to understand that it wasn't her fault,
Yeah.
which I think that victims of rape are often not in a position to be helped in that way,
Mhm.
to understand their situation like that. And I think that's huge for her as a child, um, to be in that headspace and to and kind of own um that understanding. And I think she's super strong. There's definitely moments where she's clearly just a young kid.
Yeah.
And that just makes it extra sad. But she also is not, I think she's aware of what this means, like what the baby means for her and keeping the baby and like being ready to, it was just cute how she called her ride or die, like just
Yeah.
really precious, how she is coping with the situation. And that I hope that she makes it. Like it's the kind of thing where I kind of wish I knew a little bit more about what happened to her, but it also is nice to have the open world. I'm going to choose to
The hope.
believe that,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm going to choose to believe that I don't know if she went back to Oklahoma, but her grandma seemed a little useless too, so maybe that isn't great. Um, but that she can find a space and some people, whoever they might be, that will stay with her because I think that's the thing she's struggled with for a lot of her life is that people have come in, swooped in and said they were going to help her and do this and that and then they leave. And May was one of those people. I mean, yeah, she was trying to help and do right by her, but there's only so much she could do given
Yeah.
the scenario.
Uh, I did appreciate that wasn't, she didn't play the victim of her
Yeah.
circumstance. Like she was she had a lot of self-confidence. She
Same.
really like you said, the way she talked about the baby and how she was gonna like take care of this little bitch, as she kept calling her and everything else. Like nothing was gonna happen to her. I appreciated that. Maybe that comes from being a child
Yeah.
actor or something, like the confidence you need to have to go into that
Yeah.
world in the first place. But I really appreciated how, like you said, there was times she seemed like a very mature adult, and then other times that she very much showed that she was a probably scared 14-year-old girl.
Yeah.
So another, again, very solid writing, and I feel like this is probably from the background in television where it makes you like have fully fleshed out characters and kind of understanding their arc outside of the story,
Mm.
which I think helped in the writing. So I thought that was well done. Have you ever come across a Nevaeh before? So like the reason I ask is like this is because for those who haven't or whatever, it's heaven spelled in reverse is Nevaeh. And this started being a thing in the schools that I learned through Amanda, and like it became a big thing all of a sudden. Like
I have not in the wild known a Nevaeh.
yeah,
No.
because I the first time I heard that I was like, oh wow, that's really impressive. And then like you find out there's like five others in the school too, and it's like, oh, I guess it's not. It's just like when like Hayden blew up like 20 years ago or whatever. Like it's so funny how names just kind of come
Go
and
through
go.
phases. Yeah, it's
It's
sad.
I was gonna send this to Barry, but I didn't. There's a defensive end in the NFL named Rashawn Gary, and his last name's Gary, but he talks about how the name Gary is going away, so he's doing his best to put as many Garys in the world as he can, meaning his last name. But I still thought it was funny because how names come and go. Okay, I can see from
That
your
is
face you made
funny.
it.
The name bit is funny. The I'm gonna be a baby daddy to
I'm
so
gonna.
many people is less.
Hey, maybe it's just one person. He didn't say.
That's true. That's true. But also like, ew, children.
Yeah, kids are gross. Moving back, did you have anything else you want to touch on from this?
No.
I agree. So yeah, so just stick with the hope, and we just hope it all worked out in the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
And on that note, we're going to move away from the book. We're going to move out of spoilers. And moving out of spoilers, we're not quite done with the book yet, as we have to finish by giving it our grade. We do this every episode with the D&D D20 scale. So 1 is bad, 20 is good. And then we add or subtract an ability, modifier, characteristic, or skill from the game Dungeons and Dragons, that we think best fits our story. We alternate every episode, so this time it is Taja's turn to go first. Taja, what'd you give this on the dice roll?
Okay, so I gave it a 16 straight roll. Like we talked about, it was very page turny. I read it really fast. Because of that, the characters were they really drew you in, and the action or the intrigue or whatever you want to call it, really kept me interested. Um, I also agree that I mean, I didn't have a back of the book because I read it on my Kindle, but I was sort of expecting not a current time frame thing. I was expecting more of a period piece.
Yeah.
So that was interesting, but I don't think that it necessarily took away from anything. I think the realism of it and the I guess potentially exaggerated storyline really really seemed real and raw and um yeah, enticing, I guess. I just found a pickle. That's hilarious. And then I'm going to give it a +2 investigation, which is probably very on the nose. But I think that that obviously speaks to Mae and Chris's work trying to figure out, trying to take the system down and figure out who is involved and so on and so forth. I think that I've said it a couple of times, but I love the team up aspect. So even if they weren't investigating, if they were just, I don't know, doing good, I would appreciate their team up. So that's an 18. Wow.
Nice. So for me, I was trying. I sometimes I worry that I get a little too harsh on books, so I try to think of the negatives, like what, why would I take points away from this? So this one moved a little bit, but for me, I gave it a straight roll of a 17.
Hmm.
Similar to what you said, it was such a page turner, and it really fit into that like thriller, but it didn't have that mystery aspect where, yeah, you were trying to figure out what it was that got Dan killed, like what that big secret was, as Mae was. But we learned that pretty early on, and but that doesn't take away from the story, as now we're
Right.
building up kind of the why behind it all, and I guess the who as well, even though we kind of know the players.
Hmm.
So I really enjoyed reading it. I thought it was a nice change of pace from a lot of things we read. I did think it was going to be a timepiece as well, but it being in the present day didn't take away from it at all. And it did shine a light on that world, that glamorous world that is definitely seedier than even we know. It was because of that that I kind of took away some points. Is this like, I don't do well with satire when it's like, oh, the rich got away with it. Haha, it's so funny. And that kind of gave me this feel where it was like, they're still doing it. Like in the end, spoilers outside of spoilers, the people didn't really pay for this. One guy's going to take the fall, and that's usually how it works, but it's the expendable. So, shout out Mickey Seven. You're going down again, my friend, as the expendable. For my modifier, I'm giving it a +1 for deception, and that's basically just revolving around the PR firm and all the conversations they had about deflecting the news and how we can spin it and how we can dilute it and what we can do to make our clients look cleaner than they are. I did enjoy is a strong word for it. I found it interesting, I guess,
Yeah.
kind of their tactics, and then I think you do. There's times you can see that happening in our world where it's like this. Why is this happening?
This
Like,
has
what's
been
this?
spun.
Yeah, what's this story about?
Yeah.
Why are we trying to make XYZ look so different than what we feel about them?
Yeah.
I did enjoy, again, I did interest that part of the story, which is why I went that way. So double 18s in two different ways, but we get there. So an 18 overall, as this was very interesting. We talked about it, I think, before we started recording, but the idea of this next book coming on the heels of this and being in a similar world with different characters, like it'll be interesting if this is like a new story, maybe, maybe not, or how much he touches on it. But it I'm interested to try it again, but I'm also not like eager because again, if it's gonna be just diving back into the world of shitty people, it's
We
nice
already
to
have that.
visit. It's
We
nice
live
to
that.
visit. I don't need to stay,
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of situation. So who knows? But one last time, the book was Everybody Knows by Jordan Harper. Very easy to find out there in the world. Or you can ask me for my copy, or Tasha can throw her Kindle at you, however it works. And on that note, we move away from the book, but not yet done with our podcast as we go into our segments. And we start with current selection. Tasha, what else have you been getting into or listening to? How
Uh,
is Dungeon Crawler Carl going?
Good. I've finished book 4. I've started book 5. Um, it's good. It's I think one of the things I said when we were reading it, when we read the first one, was that I appreciated that it's like the lit RPG thing happens and that's like its own genre and whatnot. But this one has also kind of like a not a deeper message, but there's other shit going on under the surface.
Mhm.
And more of that is starting to kind of come to light and like that play is happening. The pieces are moving around the board a little bit. Um, and it's just really fun. Um, Absolutely would continue to recommend the Audible version. Jeff Hayes, the narrator, is spectacular. Um, and it's just, I mean, I think we've talked about this too, that knowing that Matt Dinniman is a really good guy just makes it so much better. Um, yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with them. They're very entertaining.
Nice.
Um, and then I finished Revenge of the Tipping Point finally.
We did it!
We did it. It was good. Obviously, it was like a slow burn because I had it as like a before bed read, so I was only reading like little bits at a time. Um, I definitely preferred the first one, um, because it was more, holy shit, enlightening.
Okay.
This one was just sort of reinforcing some of his points from before.
Is it also like you're just older too? So
A
like you've
little,
experienced more of the world and you're like,
a little bit. I mean, the things that he covers in this one, I mean, he even says it in his foreword, that he kind of was mulling over the idea of writing another book about this, and that it kind of has like a not positive, like here's where the tipping points are bad.
yeah,
Or here's where really shit, like there's a whole chapter or a whole thing that he discusses about like the opioid crisis and like um stuff that is, it's, I don't want to say cynical because that's not quite right, but it's more of like a, wow, look at how this phenomenon is also not used for bad, but results in bad. It's not like people are setting out to, in every case, do that. But um, yeah, it was good. I think it was a little too real because it was talking about stuff like that. There's this one concept that he talks about. There's this town. Is it a town? Gosh, so this is the problem with taking so long to read a book is that like I've already forgotten like
yeah,
a huge chunk of it. But there's this one tipping point aspect of like this idyllic place where the rates of suicide for like high schoolers is astronomically high because this school, I think it was a school, put such pressure on these kids, and it was just like the tipping point of that. I don't know. It's just it was it's such an interesting concept, but all the stuff was really heavy
yeah.
compared to the previous book where you're like the concept and you're like, whoa, that's so cool and crazy. So yeah, it was good. I definitely would recommend the original book over this one. But
Nice. The
like,
sequel's usually hard to write,
yeah, no, understandably so. I mean, he's spectacular. I read a bunch of his books. I think he's very good at disseminating information. Um, and it's quite clear he does a fuck ton of research. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Something that always impresses me, whether it's nonfiction or fiction, the amount of
Yeah.
research that writers put into their
Yeah.
work to get things right. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is.
For me, I started the week by finishing The Last Argument of Kings, which was book three of the First Law series.
Did the plane.
Um, things happened. Uh,
Mm.
things happened. It was, I think part of it, and I think I touched on this last episode, is just how many people I've heard say it's like a top 10 series for them. I just didn't feel that. Like there were there was a lot of stuff that happened in book three that made book two made the parts of book two make more sense as far as like remember I was saying like they did that whole journey for nothing. There was a
Yeah.
reason for that. Okay.
Okay.
Other parts came into that to work. And like it did in the end, it didn't answer all the questions. Like it took care of our major conflicts, but Pharaoh's journey is far from over. Logan's journey takes a turn. It's very far from over. We're left with more questions than answers when it
And
comes
this
to
is just a
bias.
trilogy.
So there's standalone novels as well for this, and then there's a second series
Oh.
set in this world, but I believe it's like 200 or 300 years in the future, if I
Oh.
remember correctly. It's funny because I have book one to that on my shelf because I found it randomly at my bookstore for cheap, and I was like, "Oh, you
Nice.
never find the first book," and oh, it's Joe
Yeah.
Abercrombie, and it was before we read the Blade itself. So I'll get there eventually, but I will say it's moved back a little bit. I'm like, I don't need to rush into that for sure.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think I'm gonna give it to my dad when I see him and just see what he thinks.
Sure,
Like
sure.
again, I think part of it is I've just read so many series this year that I don't think it stands up to the other ones I've read. And again, maybe I'm just a little burnt out on it. I don't know. I don't know if I was in the right place to for
To
it,
continue on with it.
but like I even listened back to some of the Blade itself podcast that we did on Adult Book Club. If you're listening, go find that.
If this is
And
your
like
first time here.
hey, now that you're here, go there. And I just remember or whatever. I didn't remember. I listened to it be like, oh, I was very excited to see how this story goes forward. And like Glocka was so interesting to me. And like Glocka continued to be interesting. Like they all, it was fine. It was good. I don't think it was great. Like again, there's other things I would read again before I read that, and it just didn't give me like that whole huge character arc that I felt great about. You know, like Baez, I think starts as a question and ends as a question. Logan starts as kind of this loner bad guy with like two personalities, and he kind of ends as this guy with who doesn't really know where he belongs anymore, and Pharaoh's still seeking justice or vengeance or whatever. Like I don't know. You read 2,000 and something pages, and then you
You
go,
expect
okay, where are we? And stuff got resolved, and mysteries were solved, and characters changed, but it just I don't know. I got to the end of it, and I was like, I don't know.
so to bring it back to what you said before about how this is like a series that was listed in amongst people's favorite fantasy series. Like when I screen capped a TikTok of that series by this, like the same TikTok, and they also had the Bloodsworn trilogy in it. And those I got very different. Like I wanted to consume the Bloodsworn trilogy
Yeah,
immediately and not so much. And I loved the other Joe Abercrombie books we read. Like
yeah.
yeah, I am also a little shocked that that's on the level that it is on for some
It
people.
just like it's probably like a. I think I gave it 3 stars at the end, or maybe I
Oh
gave it
wow.
4 to look cool. I don't know. It felt mid. I'm a kid now.
Mm-hmm.
I can say that. So, but yeah. Anyway, so that's that. And then the other book I read was Shift. As I realized there's still more series out there I haven't finished, and Shift is book 2 of the Silo series.
Oh
Um,
shit. Yeah, I have that in my Audible.
Uh, it I liked it. I read it very quickly. It did something that annoyed me, but it's interesting because the show just did this. If you're watching Silo on Apple,
Yeah.
they just did this and it annoyed me. Then they spent the entire book 2 dealing with it, and I was like, okay, I get it now. So
Oh.
book 2 Shift deals with how the silos were built,
Oh.
and it gives us like the history from day one
Whoa.
until uh the revolution, if you want to call it that, of Juliet Nichols. And
Whoa.
it deals with Silo 1, and it also deals with Silo 17, which is where Solo is. He
Hmm.
comes in later. But we get all of that backstory in 600 pages or whatever it was. But it was interesting because it's like all that world building that he had already done for the book, and now he's like kind of giving us his notes in a very expanded way. So it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see how he lands the plane because I just started Dust, which is the final book. That's book 3, and now our 3 worlds are combining as we have Juliet back in Silo 18 as she was at the end of Wool. Spoilers outside of spoilers. She's now dealing with the people of Silo 1 who are like they're the ones, so they like, to give you a little backstory, they basically, the reason it's called Shift is they found technology to freeze themselves, and then they would wake up at intervals to take a shift of 6 months to oversee the silo operation, the other 49.
Wow.
So these are like original colonists,
Oh
basically, that
shit.
are
Because
still alive 300 years later.
that's bonkers.
Yeah, so it's a neat twist on the
Yeah.
sci-fi, and also like the internal struggles that happen there because people have different views, and also like as you're being woken up for these shifts,
Yeah.
for you close your eyes. Think about it: you close your eyes
Right.
at night, you wake up in the morning. You close your eyes, you wake up 100 years later, and like they even talk about how the pristine floors are now cracked and there's scuff marks on the wall, and like how the silo has aged, but they haven't, and how like mind fucky
Wow.
that is.
Wow. Yeah,
So
that's crazy.
it definitely made me more interested to see where the show is going.
Yeah.
I hope it's continuing. I don't know if it is. I think it is, but who knows? Sci-fi is so hard to do. So yeah, and then I just started Dust, which is the third book, and I'm about 75 pages into that. So be able to report on how that one lands the plane next time. and we'll go from there. So yeah, I'm excited though, and I think the show. I like the show, and I don't like the show at the same time, but they were taking stuff out of book two that I didn't realize. So now
Okay.
that's making more sense to me too, having
Fair.
because I was kind of like, where did all this come from?
Yeah.
And now you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. I mean, it makes sense to do in a show to kind of use
Right?
the whole.
Yeah. What are you going to use all the books? That's dumb.
That's
Anyway,
crazy.
moving on, we have random recommendation. Taja has this one for us this episode. So, what have you got, Taj?
All right, so I have a random recommendation from a random person. I don't even know their name. It was somebody that I was talking to at the No Kings protest last weekend. And he suggested this book called Separation of Church and Hate, A Sane Person's Guide to Taking Back the Bible from Fundamentalists, Fascists, and Flock Fleecing Frauds. That says New York Times bestseller in the spirit of George Carlin and Christopher Hitchens, the son of a former Catholic nun and a Franciscan brother, delivers a deeply irreverent and biblically correct takedown. I just started reading it. I'm only 7% of the way through. But so far I've been highlighting a lot of things. Um, it is he touts it as a book that anybody can use to um, take those Christian nationalists to task about their incredibly flawed arguments about why they are shitty or why they think they're great, but they're actually shitty. And so, yeah, I'm very interested to read it. It literally just came out, I think, in August
Oh,
of
wow.
this year. So it's fresh. It's a freshie. But obviously incredibly salient because of that. And yeah, I just feel like there's a lot of that happening in my life and in the world. And I am not, as I've said so before, not a religious person. I'm borderline not even spiritual. But I can see the bastardization of who Jesus is, was, whatever, by these people that claim to be better than everyone else. And I'm looking forward to learning some things about the real Jesus, and being able to, add that to my arsenal.
Nice.
Yeah.
And that was by John Fugelsang.
Did I not say that?
You did not, but to
Oh
be
shit,
fair,
I'm
the
sorry.
title was
I thought
about
I
500
did.
words long.
I thought I did say it, but yeah, okay, sorry about that. Bye,
No, I
John.
mean, maybe you did, but yeah, the title's like 2 dozen words. So,
There's a lot of words, yeah.
but yeah, I'm excited to see how that turns out for you and how much ammo that adds to your belt there. So,
Yeah.
we will get into that next episode as well, which means we're done with this, except for one piece of business, which is a surprise book for next episode. So, Taja, if you want to do us the, what is it? Do the
He even wrote on it.
I did. Do us the, it's not favor. What am I trying to think? Do us the honors. Do us the honors of opening that book and letting us know what we're reading next.
I like tried not to rip the quotes and I did a terrible job. Ooh, I love the cover. Shorefall by Robert Jackson Bennett.
Yeah. So, when I look for books now, there's a couple different things I look for. One, there has to be multiple copies. If I'm doing this, if it's not something I came across on the internet. So this one stood out because there's a hardcover, which I prefer, and a soft cover, which you prefer. So that
Yep.
always helps. And I was on the fence. I like picked it up and put it down because I picked up the soft cover first, and it only had the quote from Brandon Sanderson on there. I was like, okay, but he probably does this a lot. But then I picked up the hardcover, and the thing that sold me was the last quote on here is from Tamara Pierce. And I was like, okay, one maybe, but two, let's go for it. So the Brandon Sanderson quote is the exciting beginning of a promising new epic fantasy series. Prepare for ancient mysteries, innovative magic, and heart-pounding heists. And
Ooh.
from Tamara Pierce, complex characters, magic that is tech, and vice versa, a world bound by warring trade dynasties. Bennett will leave you in awe once you remember to breathe.
Ooh. The cover is really great. I love it.
Yeah. That, and again, don't judge a book by a cover. I literally do.
I always do.
Yes. So if you want to get your copy today so you can be with us next episode, again, it is Shorefall by Robert Jackson Bennett.
It's exciting.
So that will be on the next episode, which means we are done with this episode. So that has been 105th version of the ABC Pod.